and welcome to I'll Do the Talking, the wedding podcast that gives you all the tips, hints and how-tos about making your day truly unforgettable.
My daughter Caitlin is a wedding content creator.
And my dad George is a humanist wedding celebrant.
And on this episode of I'll Do the Talking, we have two giants of the wedding film making and videography world. We have Jason from Afterglow Weddings and Danny from Rizzo Films. Welcome.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Caitlin.
It's quite good getting an intro, isn't it?
You don't usually get that, no?
No, we normally just start because we've got a podcast as well, so it normally just goes Jason.
Danny.
That's our intro. So,
Well, we're glad you feel welcome.
Yeah. Maybe we want to elevate
yeah.
this
Take
momentous
notes, Jason, take
time in your lives. Something. But listen, it would be rude, as I am a wedding officiant, as you both know, not to ask you to take your I'll Do the Talking vows before we start today's episode. So we have got two vows here. So which one would you like, Danny? You're closest to me.
Oh, I'll take that one.
Take that one.
Just
okay.
to be awkward.
Right,
Just
and
to
if
be
you
awkward.
pass that one to Jason
Let me
there.
put my glasses on here.
So we'll start with Danny. So Danny, if you can insert your name as you say this, but put one hand on the mic.
Okay. What like that?
Not like that. And
So you can't hear me.
please take your vows, please, before we
Okay.
dive into the episode.
I, Danny Rizzo, solemnly swear that on this podcast mic, to spill the wedding tea, I vow to drop gems of wisdom, and with George and Caitlin, I'll do the talking.
That's it. Well done. Thank
you very much.
I was expecting you to look deep into my eyes when you did that.
No.
Okay. I, Jason Hunter, solemnly swear on this podcast mic to promise to be honest, maybe too honest. I vow to share the behind-the-scenes stories alongside Caitlin and George. I'll do the talking.
Amazing.
Thank you.
There you go.
All right, it's
We
official.
love it.
That's it. Hitched.
Exactly, yeah.
So we were going to get started with some rapid fire questions.
All right,
so
okay.
we're going to take turns each asking you a question.
Sure.
We'll give you two options with them and then just both answer first thing that comes to mind whenever you
Yeah.
hear the question. Are you ready for the
Yes.
challenge?
Let's go.
Right, fantastic.
Born ready.
Right. Which gives better footage, a confetti cannon or a sparkler tunnel?
Confetti cannon.
What is film footage gold? Tears during vows or laughter during the speeches?
Laughter during speeches.
Which happens more, the speech is forgotten or the mic doesn't work?
Mic doesn't work.
Yeah.
Surprise dances or flash mobs? Hilarious or cringy?
Hilarious.
I would say hilarious. Yeah, hilarious.
Oh, on the fence there,
Yeah,
Danny.
some could be a bit.
You're going to find the difference between us. Like,
We've got very different styles, but I mean, yeah, I'd say the majority of the time it's hilarious. Some can be a bit.
Whose voice have you heard the most while editing? Ed Sheeran or John Legend?
Ed Sheeran.
Tipsy uncle on the dance floor, comedy gold or editing nightmare?
Editing nightmare mainly, I would say.
And Jason, quick.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nightmare. Yeah.
Cake cutting, a cinematic moment or just messy?
I'd say, to be honest, just
messy.
messy. It's not even that it's messy. I don't always use it.
Yeah,
what I mean?
unless they shove it in their face. I love that.
Okay.
Kaelin?
Go-to food stand, donut wall or crisp wall?
Oh,
crisp.
Crisps. Yeah.
Okay. Favourite video transition, dissolve or swipe?
Swipe.
Neither. I don't use them, really. I don't use them.
First looks
Frost
are
is
best with bridesmaids or parents?
Parents.
Parents for the emotion.
Okay. And last one, biggest aisle moment, kids or dogs?
Dogs.
Kids.
The personality is shining through there.
You
We are quite different.
You've passed the test. We can now continue with the podcast.
Ask him in a couple of weeks. Ask him in a couple of months when he's had his baby and they're
know.
like, kids.
Oh, yeah.
I am a dog dad just now. I will be a dad of a child in about 6 weeks.
And I've got
Right.
3 boys, so no dog. So
Wow.
Okay.
yeah, it's busy. It's busy.
Yeah, very busy life you've got.
I don't have any free time or social life. This is my social life.
This is
Exactly,
right. Your
exactly.
escape from the household stuff.
So I guess we want to find out a little bit more about your journey and kind of how you started into the wedding industry. So,
Do I go first?
I'll go first, since I started first. Why not? Yeah.
Okay.
So
Right, okay.
that was a dig.
first.
I was here first,
I'll
Danny.
start.
Back off. So I did TV at college back in 2005, with like the mindset of like going to the BBC and just becoming a cameraman extraordinaire. It didn't quite happen, but weddings were sort of that side job you kind of just did while I was at college, just doing a couple weekends here and there. And then I moved to Glasgow to kind of pursue that dream. And there was a company here called RPL Weddings. Shout out to them, Mike and Scott, who took me on, and I did a couple weddings for them. That was back in like 2009. So I just did that for several years, and whilst doing that, I was working my way kind of up a corporate ladder. I thought the corporate dream was for me, and just got really disillusioned with it after a while. So the only thing I knew how to get out of that was filming weddings. That's the only thing I knew and loved, and I thought, okay, let's make a business from it. It might be difficult, but it's the only thing I know. So, 2018, I started what I thought I wanted my videography business to look like, which is kind of how I'd been trained with RPL, and did that for a few years until COVID happened, which allowed us all to kind of take a break from the industry and look at kind of what you wanted to do going forward. I still had the corporate job at that time, so I wasn't totally impacted with
How long were you with RPL?
I mean, I worked for RPL for like almost 10 years.
Okay.
So yeah, but it wasn't like full time. It was more, if they needed like a second shooter or something like that to come out and support them. So I'd done maybe between 50 and 100 weddings over the 10 years with them. So I definitely knew my way around a wedding without having been fully involved with it. But when COVID happened, I looked at the kind of style of films that I was making, and it wasn't really, it didn't really excite me in the way that I thought it would, until I looked abroad. I looked at Australia, I looked at America, and I saw how they were making wedding films, and they just excited me. They just looked so fun and so different, and I didn't really see many people doing that here. So
That's because everybody in Australia is drunk by like 10 a.m.
100%.
It's a Barbie thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm like, I can find my people here.
Yeah.
So I created the brand that Afterglow is now, which is definitely a fun, energetic, alternative wedding videographer, I would say. So that's kind of how I got into weddings, and kind of how I discovered the style that I'm creating now, just getting invited to super fun parties every weekend.
Why did you call yourself Afterglow?
So the truth behind it is that I just wanted a name that began with A, because I'd be at the top of all the registries. It's Triple A weddings.
Good strategy.
But so I needed a name that began with A, because I thought for all the wedding shows and stuff, I'd be the first supplier on the list.
Right.
But I was listening to a song by Churches called Afterglow at the time, and I'm like, well, that's a really nice song. That's a really nice name. So I googled the meaning of Afterglow, and it's the lasting effect of a day, like the lasting glow in the sky after the day's done. And I thought that's quite fitting for a video, because it is the lasting glow of your wedding day. So Afterglow became the name of the business.
Brilliant.
Love it. And I have to say, your website is hilarious. If anyone wants to check that out, I'm very pleased to say that I did pass the test.
Yes, you
Oh,
passed.
as well.
Yes,
I
we're
did
good.
pass.
Yeah, me too.
What a
We're
good
best
fit.
buds. So
Hey, it doesn't happen
I'm very
often, but you know.
100% was very chuffed with myself. So that was a very fun twist on there as well. I really enjoyed having a
Yeah,
look
you
at
know,
that.
websites are such a great opportunity for people to show their personality. Instagram's obviously great to get your work, but if you're lucky enough to get someone onto your website, they need to get to know you.
Your website is class though. It's like so you as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
It's-
it screams. Jason's website does really well at like, not only attracting the type of client that he wants to shoot a wedding for, but also to kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like,
Rule out people that maybe
Character, I think.
rule out people that, because people are going to go in that
Yeah.
and go, well, that's not for me. Because it's like, they're maybe like, well, it's a bit too
Yeah,
much.
it
But
becomes its own
he's getting
filter.
Exactly.
You know,
He's-
it
he
kind
gets-
of
he
weeds
gets
out
people
people,
he wants.
and that's no offence to anyone who's wanted to check it out and then it's not for me.
Yeah.
They'll just go somewhere else, like everything. In
Yeah,
the
it's just because
choice.
the style of film that he does is so different, but it's so good.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it does. It's a cracking website. I love it.
Yeah, I think one thing we'll probably touch on later is like, finding your right suppliers and finding your right
Yep.
people. And I'm doing the exact same with that. Like, I don't want to film every single wedding in Scotland. I want to film the weddings that are going to get the most value out of me being there for them. So my
100%.
website kind of, I remember being at a wedding show and I had all of my kind of quirky sort of stuff going on. There was a couple doing Mortal Kombat in a video because they met in an arcade. So I had that showing at a wedding show where it's all about love and romance. And then this woman came up to the stand and was like, "Oh God, no." And I was like, "That's okay. Romance is just around the corner."
I love that story.
Amazing.
Brilliant.
That's so
Brilliant.
good. That's so good.
Danny, why are you called Rizzo Films?
Well, it's very, very inventive. It's my surname. It wasn't always called. It wasn't always called that. I first started off because I started off during kind of like COVID. Because before that, I was in corporate. I'd been in corporate for like 15 years. Kind of like sales management, marketing, ops management kind of thing. And then in 2021, I was the kind of ops manager for a local startup in Glasgow, but obviously COVID happened.
Yep.
Kirsty was pregnant with Frankie, so we had Frankie in the May of 2020. So like just as COVID had hit, because it was a startup, it was very dicey whether or not we were going to get another round of funding. So I was like, I have a new baby on the way and I don't know if I'm going to have a job. What is going on in the economy? Seems like, at that point you were like, oh my God, is it ever going to go back to normal? So I basically just started playing about with the camera and I was like, oh, I could do this. I could, so I started shooting little kind of like corporate-y kind of stuff, residential, but it was so boring because I'm a like total people person. So like me in a room by myself with a gimbal filming walls, I was like, this is so uninspiring. Like this is just not doing it for me at all. And the wall is not talking back to me, so I need to find somebody to talk to me. And then I shot kind of like a couple of things for like a little kind of like couple kind of shoot thing for some of our friends. And then somebody, David from Arrow Productions, seen it on Facebook. 'Cause he lived quite local and he was like, come and do weddings. I was like, I am not doing weddings. Get away from me. Like, I don't want to do weddings. That sounds horrendous. And then I done another kind of couple shoot thing and he was like, you need to come and do weddings. I was like, I'll come and I'll second shoot, but like I'm not doing weddings. And then after that first one, I got hooked at that point, and then here we are. Was that like four or 5 years later or something? So
Yeah.
but yeah, I love it. It's I think for me it was just I'd been in corporate for so long and I was good at it but I was just kind of a little bit sick of the rat race almost, and I wanted. Also, when I found this, I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. I work for myself. I can go to couples like weddings and be on a high pretty much 24/7. So yeah, and have not really looked back since.
So no compatibility tests on your website?
No. You'll see that Jason and I are very, very different. Like very, very different in terms of like styles and branding and stuff,
Yeah.
But that's good because it's
Oh,
options,
absolutely. Yeah. How come you hit it off then?
So I think we're quite similar. we are quite similar, although like we have different artistic tastes.
Very much
Shall we
so.
say? Because I'll be like that to Jay sometimes, like what do you think of that or whatever? And he's like, nah, do this. And then it's like something crazy, like what you were talking about there about transitions and stuff like that. I'm like, no, can we tone that down just a little bit? Just a little bit.
Yeah.
But no, we are quite similar. Because obviously we've got the podcasting as well now, which obviously we'll talk about. But yeah, we're similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you're self-employed, you're a business owner, and I think that was something that always appealed to me about starting my own thing. I wanted to run my own business. I wanted to grow something. I think Dan and I got talking over. I think the first thing you reached out to me on was like a sound effect on a film or something, or like you wanted to see a teaser or something and how you could.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I just went in and ripped it apart, and but then from there we started speaking about business, and I think that became really interesting to us. We just had we essentially became like 2-3 hour phone calls, like when we were driving to weddings on how to do things, and that's kind of where our interests sort of merged.
Yeah.
We just both happened to be wedding videographers, but yeah, we didn't actually meet until we only met each other a couple of years ago. Really, we knew of each other initially because both Danny and I were number 1 and number 2. If you typed in Glasgow Wedding Videographer, it was one of.
So it was a battle.
and I was like,
they knock
who the
each
hell
other
is
off.
this Danny
Every
Rizzo?
other day, it would swap, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I
it
was
would
like-
swap. I'd be first and he'd be second. Then I'd be second, he'd be first.
And I was like, who the heck is this Rizzo Films? Where's it come from?
It's interesting you say about phoning each other, because Caitlin and I spoke about this on another episode where we'll kind of have the debrief call with each other. So she's at a wedding longer than me, of course, but she'll often phone me from a wedding on the way home and say, oh my God, I've seen this or I've seen that. And we were saying that really helps me, because when I'm creating the ceremony with couples, you've obviously got different hats on all the time, and you're kind of, I'll remember something Caitlin's talked about from the evening or the morning or the afternoon or something, and it really is helpful for me as a celebrant to just kind of give a bit of advice on something that I normally wouldn't know about.
Yeah.
Almost,
It's also, if we're at a wedding together, like obviously then after the ceremony, you're leaving, but then I'm there for the rest of the day. So especially if you've been at that wedding, then I like actually telling you, oh, so this happened, oh, you missed this, I bet you're gutted that you didn't stay. And, kind of make him a bit jealous to be like, well, the dinner was fantastic and they had this entertainment, so are you gutted or what that you had to go?
That's it.
Or any crazy stories or anything that happens. So,
Quite right.
You both spoke about, when you were talking about like your styles and stuff like that, about your style of capturing things, and obviously there's so many different ways of capturing a wedding. So obviously for me, I like to, do things a lot more candid than what people realise. Trust me, I love a good TikTok trend where people will do it, but most people don't want to do it. So it's interesting kind of what people's perspective of that is. But I think what a lot of people don't understand is, one, what does it actually mean, like your wedding style of videography, and how do you actually find what you want? So could you just tell us a wee bit about, like, well, really, what is your style, and like how did you kind of come to that, or how can people make sure that they're the right fit?
There's a lot in, I would say, in the market that are, in terms of like wedding videography is or wedding films, it's a similar kind of style. I think if you go and watch people that kind of like challenge the norm a little bit, like Jace, it's quite evident that that's a different style to like what the majority of the market is, which is obviously by design. But yeah, there's like loads of things that you can look like in terms of like style. Some are like really, really story and narrative driven by like using the ceremony and speeches throughout, as well as cuts to that as well, not just the audio. Some can be maybe like a lot more slower and a lot more romantic. Some can be more upbeat, some more flashy, really, really energetic. So it kind of, you can only really figure that out by obviously like going and watching like what's in their portfolio, which is something I would always recommend anyway, But yeah, in terms of like my style, I would kind of describe mine as more like, it's like contemporary, story driven, cinematic is kind of the way that I kind of do it, because it's not like, it's generally not like quite like orchestral, like it's kind of a little bit more upbeat but cinematic. And how would you describe yours?
Wild. I think there's this misconception with me, and I know this because Danny's always said that I could never film one of your weddings. That I'm always in the faces of people, like sort of like going, hey, let's be crazy and stuff. But generally, I stand quite far back. Like if something happens, I will go in and I'll get that moment, but not after the photographer's done their thing. I'll go in and maybe get a quick moment. But really, the style is kind of found in the edit. I basically shoot a wedding as much as to let the couple do their thing on the day as naturally as possible. And then when the edit comes, I'm just selecting the moments that I found the funniest, I found them being the most authentic, and found them laughing. So I'll specifically find the laughing moments of a 30-second clip. You won't see the rest of the 30 seconds, you'll see the laugh. You'll see the people falling over, you'll see the kind of the fun, energetic moments of a day. So as much as like on the day I'm, it looks like I've been like proper wild with people, I'm doing that for a small portion. So, when it comes to like finding a style that works for you, I think if you watch a wedding film about a couple that you don't know and you enjoyed it, there's a probably good chance you found the style that works for you.
Okay.
I would say.
Do you think there's been a rebranding with some videographers out there, especially since the content creating sectors come on that Caitlin does, to put the word film in their name, to sort of try and do a differentiator between content creators and videographers?
It's a difficult thing, isn't it? Because I think there's a lot of confusion with couples at the moment in terms of like what's the difference.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And there's a couple of reasons for that. Like I think there's a couple of things that maybe doesn't help in some scenarios. Like sometimes if you look on at the forums, which when people post on like looking for a wedding videographer and then a content creator pops up, I can do that. It kind of muddies it a little bit.
Yeah.
But they are very different. Do you know what I mean?
Totally,
They're complementary, but they are different. You know?
Hi, I'm Jason from Afterglow Weddings.
I'm Danny from Rizzo Films,
And today we're sponsoring I'll Do the Talking.
where we are spilling all the tea on wedding videography. So feel free to come on and check it out, like and subscribe, and listen in.
Yeah, all the juicy stuff from videography at your wedding. It's an episode or 2 episodes that you do not want to miss.
So remember to subscribe where you get your podcasts.
I think it would be difficult for people to rebrand to film because in terms of SEO, like if people were searching for a
they're not
videographer,
really searching
we're
for
known
it.
as videographers. We're not
Yes,
not known as wedding filmmakers.
Filmmakers.
So no one's going to search for wedding
And your
filmmaker.
podcast that you do is called that
Wedding
Videographer podcast.
So
Yeah,
the
because-
name's in there, isn't
Yeah,
it?
that's what we are. That's we are known as that. I think
Yeah.
when I started, I put in cinematographer, but I'm like, no one's searching for a wedding
wedding
cinematographer, right? No one's searching for that. But yes, there is definitely a confusion, and it's easy to see why, because you're seeing videos of weddings. You're seeing videos by videographers. You're seeing videos by content creators. So are we both offering the same thing? Is it a case of one's doing landscape, one's doing vertical? Well, my wedding teasers were vertical for years. So essentially, I was a content creator in the same regard. So I'm creating content at a wedding by the platform of video. There's just, I think, to differentiate yourself, most people can't really, they just want to see their wedding, in however regard, I think videography goes more than just a teaser, and that's not what people see publicly on Instagram, because most people don't share their highlights or their longer films because they're not designed for the mass market. Teasers are kind of designed to reel everyone in, to think, this is exactly what I do and this is what a wedding looks like. But most people don't get the opportunity to see the longer films, which means that most people aren't getting the chance to understand what a videographer actually does.
Yeah.
And with alongside when you're rocking up to a day's filming, then with alongside suppliers, content creators, celebrants, and everybody else there, what's going through your mind? Do you kind of generally get a list of who you're about to work with, and how does that play out so that couples watching this can get reassured, I guess, of that's a great way to operate?
Yeah, so I think most of us will send out like a questionnaire before the wedding.
Yeah,
like a couple of weeks before the wedding, just to get like that timeline of the day. And
I
full
often wonder,
supplier.
Danny, just to interject, how many questionnaires do couples get, by the way?
I know.
I think we all do questionnaires of some sort, but poor them.
There should probably be like
There should be a
unified
program that says, like, here's your notifies, and if you join this program, you can all have the same
Maybe
questionnaire.
all couples should
Maybe
just do one universal document and just send
Probably
it to
somebody,
actually everybody and
I
go,
would say
here's everything. If you need anything else,
That's it.
then you can contact
That's-
me. But here's
yeah.
everyone who's in the day.
A lot of people have different questionnaires in terms of, like, finding
stuff
things,
like
what's
like,
questions that they need.
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, Danny.
But yeah, like for us, it's like order of the day, times of the day. Who's doing a reading if they're doing a reading, because that's so that we know to put mics on them. Who's doing a speech again to put mics on. If there's any other kind of like things that are happening on the day that maybe out of the norm that kind of weren't captured. So like maybe like fireworks or something like that kind of stuff. So filling that out, and then at that point, that's normally when we'll get like the full kind of like supplier list at that point. And then you see George's name on there, and you go, "Oh, no, again! I've had him
There must have
four
been on it,
weeks in a row, man. 4 weeks in a row."
I'll need to put the mic lower because he's quite loud, so put the mic lower so it doesn't peak. Right, okay, cool.
Nothing wrong with throwing your voice.
But I think that was it. Was it not like three weeks in a row?
Was that?
Three in a row.
Yeah, it was.
So I can't get rid of you, man.
Yeah, it's definitely good to know who you're working with because, you know, in an industry with so many different suppliers, everyone has different styles and approaching and ways they like to work. You know, for example, some people like to have people standing, some people like them sitting. So it's about understanding what
Please
it
stay
is.
sitting.
Yeah, please stay sitting. Yeah,
Please stay sitting. Just put that out there. Please stay sitting.
just during the vows, though.
Just during the vows.
So it's good to understand who you're working with so that you can prepare kind of beforehand. I mean, to be fair, really, the only thing I need to know from a questionnaire is where do I need to be and when in the morning. Everything else in the day, so like I'll talk to the celebrants like yourself and find it right. So who's doing readings today? Who's doing that? And you'll fill me in on what's happening during the ceremony. And most like I'll talk to photographers and content creators and find out like what their plans are during the day.
Yeah.
I get most of the information on the day. The questionnaire is just there for me to reference if something else comes up or if there's any surprises. Really, so
who wears the hat? Is it the photographer or videographer?
For me,
Who's
it's the
controlling?
photographer, and it's simply because I personally believe videographers can be really flexible on the day. I think photographers have to have some sort of element of control because for the group shots and stuff, they need to have authority in controlling that many people. Videography, I think, started as complementary to photography in the way that content creation is complementary to videography now. And that kind of role has changed with some people. Some people like to have control as a videographer. It just depends on the style of videography. Some people need a bit of element of control in terms of like posing and, you know, like setting up situations. For my style, I don't personally need that. I can be flexible.
But
I wouldn't say that there's any one person that has a hat. I think there's certain points of the day where for instance, the photographer will take more control. For instance, like the group shots, like because we don't like. I'll maybe stay and capture a little bit of it sometimes, like with the groups. But for video, it doesn't always look great. It's a good chance to like nail the really important people because they're going to be in those groups.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So that's when you're getting all your photographs
It's
with
pretty
like
kinda static.
your family and stuff. But it's all static shots, which obviously doesn't look great in video. For video, you want a bit of movement. So that's when like the photographer completely takes control. Because we've generally, for most videographers, we don't really, not that we don't want the footage, it's just that it doesn't always fit in very well, you know? Because we want movement. So at that point, we will maybe go off and get like candids of people chatting and laughing and actually moving, you know? But yeah, I don't know if it's a case of like somebody wears the hats per se. I think you just become a bit of a team because you're kind of like joined at the hip, or certainly I am.
Yeah.
And I think most videographers are. You're kind of where
I
they
feel
go.
the same.
And with content creators, you're all kind of joined at the hip mainly.
Yeah, it's definitely not like absolutely someone's in charge all day, but I do tend to let the photographer take charge during those moments. We've all got different parts of the day that are more difficult than others. For photographers, it's the group shots. For videographers, it's the ceremony and speeches. That's our point. Like, right, we need space here to manage this because we're managing multiple cameras, managing multiple microphones. There's many moving parts. Whereas a photographer can be in one position and get what they need. So
that's our most like dialed in moments. I would say, like when you go from like proper being in the zone when it comes to like ceremony and speeches because there's so much going on. You know, you're managing maybe three, sometimes four camera angles. You know, making sure microphones haven't like slipped down or anything like that. You know,
but yeah, the
making
correct
sure people aren't standing in front of the cameras and stuff.
Yeah, the absolute correct answer to it is that there's like no one's in charge. It should be a team effort.
Yeah, it's a collaborative effort.
You need to be communicative with the photographer and the content creator to go like, how do we all work together to make sure that everyone's getting what they want from this moment? And you know, if it's take turns to get what you need, that's what needs to happen. So
it's the same as well. Like just even with like celebrants, like when you're conducting a ceremony, making sure that you know you're respectful in the way that you're kind of like moving about. You're not just kind of like you know right in people's faces, which you see sometimes in some videos like behind the scenes stuff, and like you've got videographers or photographers like try to give them a retina examination, and you're just like, oh my god, just.
I always like to get on site in time to have that chat. I've done it with you guys, of course, you know, and fill you in on. Sometimes you arrive and there's an unexpected poem being read you didn't know about, or
had that,
or somebody turns up, the groom has got a bottle of whiskey and like we never spoke about the quake. But I've always got it in my bag, so we're okay.
Well,
you know?
For example, the last time you and I worked together was a wedding out near Steps, and the photographer never turned up.
Yes, it
If you
was.
remember that.
Yeah. The gathering.
Yeah, and you gave me the grace to have a bit of time to figure that situation out, because I'm like, in my head, I'm going, I need the couple to have something from this. So how do I turn into a videographer / photographer for the ceremony? How do I make this happen? So you gave me the kind of grace to go figure that situation out. You delayed things a little bit for me, and managed to do that. So it's working together to manage those situations. And these things can happen.
Yeah.
So
I think it's important that people realise, and when you turn up as a supplier on a wedding day, it is just instantly, okay, who's my team for the day?
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, I've got a new best friend for the day.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys. Like, we're here together all day long. There's, we need to be able to work together and find out what suits for everyone.
You need to be a team player.
Absolutely.
Absolutely need to be a team player. If you can't be a team player, you're in the wrong job.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you're not
Find
doing it right.
find another profession.
Yeah.
Because you're
What
not going to last
about
long.
chapters? I've kind of called this question chapters, but in your head, do you chunk up the day in chapters? What kind of time do you arrive? To when do you leave typically? What happens on through the day?
I'm normally there like about somewhere between kind of like 2 and 3 hours before the ceremony, because that just gives me enough time to, get there, get all my kit, because we've got a lot of kit. Always jealous of like photographers and content creators who rock up with like a
bag.
A bag. Meanwhile, I'm like a donkey with tripods and light stands and stuff. But so yeah, in terms of like chapters, like I guess they're a few hours before the ceremony starts, and they're till it depends. For most weddings, it's maybe like capture first few dances, bit of the dancing, and then after that kind of go, just so you can let them kind of enjoy the rest of the night, without cameras on there.
How far after the first dance are you getting out of there before it's too messy?
Well, I don't mind it a lot of the time if it's like really boisterous and like there's a lot of people in the dance floor, then I'll stay and I'll capture like quite a bit of that. It's just that generally kind of what happens is you have the first few dances and the dance floor is quite packed, and after those first few dances it kind of just dissipates.
people go for a drink.
And people go for a drink, and the dance floor kind of like not that it dies, but there's a lot less people on the dance floor, which doesn't always
it's usually
film.
the same people, so you're thinking, okay,
There's only so many angles you can get one person, So
Aunt Sue looks brilliant, but
so at that point, unless I can kind of like know that I can maybe like coax, because the last wedding that I done, that happened. So I then said to like the bridesmaids, I was like, right, the bride and groom are on the dance floor pretty much by themselves. Can you go sort that out, please? And then everybody came back on, and then it was like, do you know what I mean? So there's like some things that you can do to try and influence it, but it just depends on the wedding and how many people are obviously going to be on the dance floor kind of thing. But yeah, generally first few dances, and that's like generally enough to capture. But yeah, if that dance floor's packed, I'll stay on it longer.
What about bridal prep and stuff? Is that kind of big section, and you kind of considering a lot in that section of the day?
Yeah, 100%, because you don't know what kind of day you're walking into when you get to the morning. I'm the same as Danny. I'll be there from like 2 to 3 hours before, because I want to get those morning preparations. Some people are super excited, super energetic, and some people are really anxious and, overwhelmed at the situation. Now, you obviously have to approach both of those scenarios very differently, which is what, videographers and photographers are pretty good at being able to do. But in terms of like a storytelling aspect, if you look at the storytelling as a concept, you're always looking for some sort of conflict. The conflict in a wedding day just sounds really bizarre, but if people are overwhelmed or anxious or nervous, it's like that's an element of conflict that you go like, how do they overcome that? And it's them seeing their other half come down the aisle, and that weight just drops. That's that moment that we're waiting for in terms of storytelling. So not that I'm hoping that people are anxious or overwhelmed in the morning, because I was, and it was a nightmare on my morning. God, I was so late for my wedding. But
There was reasons for that, Jason.
Yeah. Okay, so I may have got to bed at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's fine.
Don't do what Jason done.
Don't have the fear on the morning of your wedding.
If you're listening, do not follow. Terrible.
Let's just dive into that just momentarily. Why were you up to 5 a.m?
Well, actually,
not only were you up to 5 a.m, you were up to 5 a.m. doing what?
No, sleeping in a swimming pool. Really.
No.
What was it
There was a little mark on your face, remember?
I did that sober.
Even worse.
I fell into a bush the night before my wedding and got a big scratch on my neck, which was My wife saw she got down the aisle. I was like, I'll tell you about that later.
Please, if you're watching, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. I
ever-
don't do that.
don't ever do
I
that.
actually, I fell asleep at 2:00, but I got brought to bed at 5:00, so I was just sleeping on a couch. But
Okay,
so it's fine.
okay,
It was all good.
okay.
We're good. I had a great wedding day. It didn't affect my wedding day, but don't do that. Like,
Men's version of the day before the wedding is so different to
So
women's.
different.
Mine was so nothing like that.
everyone's got the
at
fake
all.
tan on, so they couldn't go in the massive hot tub that I'd ordered. Like, I got this
right.
lodge because I had a massive hot tub, and I'm like, they can't even go in it. So I'm going to utilize it all. Great. Good. But
That's
no,
exactly the reason I didn't get a tan, because I wanted to go
Exactly.
for a
Right,
massage
exactly.
the day before.
Experience.
I was
Exactly.
like, nah, I'm living it up, living it up.
But yeah, in terms of chapters of the day, the bridal prep, it's going to have it's going to start your day off. That's how, we're either going to have a proper energetic beginning and kind of lead all that way through, or we're going to have a sort of build up to a climactic moment in the film. That's where you're kind of finding what the story of the day is right from the get-go. And it's the same with the groom prep as well, because, everyone obviously emphasizes the bridal prep, but groom preparations can be very emotional. They can be very fun. Like, you don't know what you're walking into in the morning.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great chance. It's a great opportunity if you can get your suppliers to be there from the morning, just to kind of get the vibe of what that morning is. You'll find that most of them aren't like maybe it's a busy room. A lot of people have said that it's a busy room. You don't want another couple of bodies in there kind of doing it, but that's the time where you stand really back and you just kind of
I just let things happen.
Assess.
you let things happen. So,
Yeah, because you can see on your questionnaire, you can have 3 bridesmaids, a maid of honour, 2 little kids. You can have just a name or list of people.
Yeah.
But the actual feeling bit of assessing what's happening at that point can only be done on the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned about anxiety. I think it's definitely. Do you feel that you're conscious when you spot that? What do you do to help that for couples?
I think sometimes it can be just like, okay, has the bride or groom or whatever it is, have they got a drink? Let's give them a glass of fizz in their hand or something like that, just to kind of calm the nerves.
Yeah.
Or just giving them a bit of reassurance, because if they start getting stressed about, something's not right with the person, it's like, don't worry, it's fine. We'll get
Yeah.
it sorted, and just kind of get them there's people on hand dealing with it. Because I think a lot of the time as well, maybe in a lot of instances, if it's bride and groom get married, the majority of the time it's the bride that's done the lion's share, to put it
Yeah.
politely,
Yeah,
of the
that's fair
planning
to say.
of the planning. So then sometimes she'll be trying to get stuff done or whatever, and I'll be like, listen, put that down. Go and enjoy time with the girls. Somebody else will do that. We'll
Yeah.
get somebody to sort it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than her just
just
getting all
spotting
stressed
something
out
you
and
can-
doing something, because you want them to, you as the bride and groom want to enjoy the day, not to still be,
Yeah.
putting finishing touches to stuff, because that's other people's jobs.
Yeah.
I think on the morning of the wedding, something that people really need to get better at. See, if you're a bridesmaid or a best man, an usher, you were asked to do that job because you have a job. You're not there just to get your outfit paid for and go and have a drink. You're there to actually help those people.
Yeah.
You're meant to be the one to recognise that as well, help ease them. When you're in the room, biggest thing for the bridesmaid, please clean up after yourself. I find that a lot of my morning is spent cleaning up after people to make sure that, right, okay, have you been to the toilet? Have you been? Right, okay, can you go do this? Because they need somebody to be of charge at that point. So I think in the morning, it's a lot of that I find that a lot of stresses happen because the bride or the groom find that their wedding party is off doing whatever they want and not actually being there to support them. Make sure that you help them out as much as they can in
I
the
think
morning.
that's a tip though for bride and groom watching because or listening is that to actually maybe give a bit of not a job description, but almost like some tips on. Listen,
guys
I'm looking for you to
definitely need that.
take
Guys
that.
are
useless.
Ushers and groomsmen, do the least amount of ushering in the world.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that it's such a valid point. People do forget actually, this isn't just a role in the day. You're not just getting a kilt or a dress. We actually need you here.
Yeah.
And I think even brides and grooms can forget that that's why they're asking people. But actually, that would help everyone.
Yeah.
I would say 90% of weddings though, they're great, because especially during
100%,
group photos or something like that. That's where you generally have I don't know, photographers will say to the couple, like, okay, I need like your bridesmaid that knows everybody on your side of the family.
and
I
get
need a
this, this, and
groomsman
this,
on that
Yeah.
side to make it easier, because otherwise it ends up like a rammy.
Aye.
But
Yeah, definitely. So we've got the first chapter is the arrival and the getting the a vibe of kind of both sets of the bride and groom, or groom and groom, bride and bride combination, and then we've got the ceremony. So what's your take on that? You spoke earlier about kind of chatting with the celebrant, myself, and your fellow content creator and photographer and stuff like that. What else are you thinking about though for that ceremony part? Because that's the bit I always find that it's the first act of the day. That's when most people are most anxious, I think.
yeah.
Is this from the point of like what is a videographer thinking of, or what should like a couple be thinking of?
No, well, from your angle as
Because
the
our perspective is
filmmaker.
so different. We're looking for exit routes. We're looking for how do we get to each tripod that's stood up.
Of
you know,
course.
some ceremony rooms don't have spaces down the side of chairs.
Yeah.
We're wondering how many people are going to be standing up at the top of the aisle, because that's going to affect vision as well of routes there. People doing readings, music being played. We need to have everything mic'd up. There's
a lot for
Yeah.
us. Like
Yeah.
that is as I said before, the ceremony speeches are our moments where we're like so dialed in to like what's going on. Like so you're kind of just like you're in proper work mode at that point, aren't you?
Yeah, like normally the groom is standing at the top of an aisle, and we're wanting to find exactly where they're going to stand to turn around and see their partner come down the aisle.
Try and capture that moment.
And we're like, they'll often drift off to the side, which is natural because they want to talk to their friends and family. They're nervous, but I'm like standing in the back going, stand still so I can get the focus, so I can get that point, and I can leave this camera and go up to the top of the aisle.
Get like spray paint,
Yeah.
put an X in the floor. Do not move.
This is why sometimes like videographers will offer you the option to have a second videographer. That isn't just to get more footage. It's there for those multiple camera ceremonies and speeches to make sure that, because we can only manage one camera at a time. So we can leave the other cameras off, just recording. But once we've left them, they have to do their job. So we're making sure that the cameras are high enough that when everyone stands up to welcome the people into the room, they're not going to get blocked off. They're not going to throw focus. So we're looking for points of vision where we can see everyone at any time, and trust that it's going to be left alone and not kicked like it's been kicked so many times with people, kids running around, or like someone just like pulling their chair too far back,
or somebody coming out to like
phones.
See the many times that I've had like the
phones.
camera at the back, the person's turned around, looks dead through the lens, so they see that there's a camera there, and then still just goes in with their phone. And it's like, come on.
I had someone stand out like at the back of that. It was a wedding coordinator that stood out, and they just stood right in front of my back angle and just filmed it on their phone. I asked them if I could get the footage of the phone because I had no usable footage. So I'm like, I'm sure you got a better shot than I did. So
I always make sure that, like you said, it's almost like an X marks the spot. So I say to the person waiting and the other person arriving, like that bit in the carpet, that flower in the carpet or the end of the runner is where I need you to stand. And one of the other things I'm really, really, and I wasn't like this in my early days as a celebrant because you kind of cut your teeth, I guess, but I just absolutely get out the way of the kiss. I pride myself in not being in that kiss shot. So I need to make sure, I need to know, am I walking into you? I know you'll have heard me ask you, I'm going to go left. Or I'm going to go right, or whatever it is, as you say that, and you may now kiss. Can I move a wee?
Some people are really good at being out of the way for it, and some people think they're doing a good job of it because they say, now you can kiss, and then start the walk. But what we get is them halfway walking as the couple, because couple are really quick to kiss.
I know.
So if people would stand off to the side, because I'm either stay there or not be there. Don't be moving while it's happening.
It's distracting.
So it's either stay there, which is fine, or be out the way.
Did you not have something, Caitlin, you said to people about like so many seconds, like have the kiss for?
Yeah, it's
not a quick pecking out. It's like 5 seconds at least.
Yeah.
Do you know? I guess it's
probably. I think 6 or 7.
Just hold it.
Some people though usually like go in for like a wee 3 second, a wee peck, and then another wee longer kiss after that. That's fine. Wee 7-8 second montage of whatever version of snog that you want to do. Cool. Brilliant. But just
It just depends, doesn't it? Because some people just don't like the PDA.
Yeah.
No, too right.
Like, so
Too
it's
Or
ideally.
sometimes it's a bit too much, and you're like,
then you're like, right, that's it, that's plenty.
You may
that's
now
plenty.
fist bump the bride.
Interesting.
But yeah, just like ideally, it's a little bit longer than just like a quick peck. But yeah, each their own.
Absolutely. So listen, that's going to do us for this first part of this episode with you guys. But thanks for joining us so far on the I'll Do the Talking podcast.
No, thank you.
Thank you
for
so
having us.
much.
It's been
Can't
fun.
wait for part 2.
Yeah.
Oh, hey.